I'm showing this magazine. It's Hustler magazine. It's Larry Flynn, who was shot in Lawrenceville, Georgia, at March the 6th of '78. And I'm showing it because he did an endorsement of me, and I was flown out to his home twice, October of '03, in a political, excuse me, a political campaign to replace a doctor congressman that I'd written about in a medical malpractice book in Atlanta. He was shot in Lawrenceville, and I was doing the book in Marietta, which is not too far from Lawrenceville. His attorney was shot, and the person that shot him and his attorney was programmed to do it, mind control. So that's part of what I was writing about in the medical malpractice book that did not get published. By the way, this was April of '84 after I'd ran for Congress and been out at his home. But I was writing about programming and what you can do with it, modify behavior. It's the Tesla files that were stolen back, as far as I know, in the early 30s or 30, and what was done with them. In other words, you can create an illness or cure it with mind control. You make disappear of suicide, etc., etc. But what I wanted to focus on at the moment was none of the media has ever mentioned me other in a derogatory and lying about me. I was kidnapped. My name is Margaret Ann Windsor, and I was kidnapped from Buckingham Palace in '41. My father was illegally taken down, and Elizabeth and her father, George VI, are illegal. They signed for the United States to put its bases all over British soil and used Great Britain as a launching pad, and they've taken down Great Britain. Africa is part of the takedown. Now then, and they're using it for the purposes I'm about to say, which I've told over and over, and they never mentioned me. I had one reporter call me back after I'd actually been arrested. He called me back later, and he said, well, I don't want my mother to die, so I'm not going to talk to you. So anyway, I'm going to go to this. Africa was African colonies. Also, the rest of my family, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, etc., were monarch government at the time. So they're all related to me, as they are to Elizabeth, who's illegal and signed the illegal treaties that allowed all this to happen, her father, and she's never done anything different except flaunt money that's mine in my face while I pick cotton. I'm going into that. It's a horror where I was taken, but I picked cotton. I did all those things. I mean, it was horrible. But it's my life after then. When I wrote the book simply trying to tell people what was going on, and I was referred to as a whistleblower. I'm really a captive. I'm a hostage. There's no other word for it. And so were my sons, Mark and Scott. But now I don't know where they are. I've tried, and I have no idea where they are. But I wanted to get to this. In the book I wrote, on April Fool's Day of '80, I had antifreeze put in me and should have died. So I'm going to leave it at there. The book was unpublished. I had a letter from the FBI June the 23rd of '79. And by the way, I will put this in here. The apartments that I lived in at that time, I'd moved from Moonraker, a couple of blocks up, were Laurelwood. And the manager there actually told me that I can't remember if it's her uncle or nephew, was in charge of the Patty Hearst kidnapping. So everybody remembers Patty Hearst. Well, her father owned all the newspapers and Hearst Castle and all this. So it gets into the people. He owned a publishing company, Hearst. So it gets into the orchestration of the takedown of my father, Edward VIII, with lies. And then I was born. My mother was Claudia Ruth O'Keefe, the only woman he was ever married to. And she was Catholic, Irish, American, and it wasn't the British people that did all this. They're the ones that helped me. It was part of my family, the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, the Illuminati, the New World Order. And the Joe Kennedy was ambassador back then, sent there by Roosevelt, and the Kennedys were part of my kidnapping and bringing me to Moulton, Alabama, and giving me the name of a twin when they were both dead. Now then, I just looked at NBC, and I already know this. I'm just mentioning. I've known it for a long time. It showed the road sign, street sign, Rockefeller, and it pointed that way. Well, your media is controlled by the Rockefellers and Rothschilds, the Illuminati, the ones that kidnapped me. So they're not going to mention what they've done to me. But I want to get to this. I wrote about mind control murders. Virginia Tech here happened after I came up here, the mass shootings, and there's lists there, the use of mind control. There's lists there and over at University of Virginia, and it's not that it just happened here. I'm going to mention Bishop. Amy Bishop was a professor at the University of Alabama. And the attorney Miller that defended her, he had defended her with an insanity plea. And mind control has nothing to do with mental illness. It's a weapon. But anyway, that's one of them. She shot 3 co-workers who were professors, I believe, at the university there in Huntsville. He had worked with me briefly when I worked for the District Attorney Fred Simpson in 1980. This is after the antifreeze, and no one can imagine what it was like trying to work and pretend you weren't in hell, you weren't in pain. So now I want to go to the book. Larry McDonald was the focus of the book, a doctor, congressman. But I want to go to the Center for Disease Control. I wrote about this back then. The HIV had started. They tried to say it started, that's AIDS. They tried to say it started in Africa also. The AIDS virus and the Ebola, I did not mention the Ebola back then, but it was in 76, so you can follow what I'm saying. I did write about Emory University and a Dr. Robicher. By the way, without getting into it, Jonas Robicher was an honest man, and he was killed, and he was murdered, and they made it look like natural cause. But anyway, the Center for Disease Control, and you can Google this, there's a Dr. Horowitz, they have their title with them, and others who've also made this claim, and it's true that the Ebola virus and the AIDS virus and God knows what else was actually deliberately manufactured, genetically engineered here in the United States lab, Center for Disease Control in Emory, right where they're bringing some of them back to. It's almost like, hey, you started the disease, the illness, now here you got it back. They're mentioning the nurse on there on NBC this morning, and they're calling her heroic and all these things. You know what they call me? They always knew my name and about my kidnapping before I did. They put me on the side of the road. I beat the doors down with all this. And they called me nuts. They called me every bad name in the book. Not one ever tried to help me. Now then, I want to, and the thing that gets me is now then, CNN and all of them are saying, well, flights out of Africa should be banned. They shouldn't be allowed to leave and come into the United States. So the United States is the one. Center for Disease Control is one of your agencies. They created it. This country did. They shipped it to Africa and killed how many people? And now then you don't think it's right that it comes back on you? It should stay in Africa? Now, I want to go to this. I saw the CNN with Wolf Blitzer. All these reporters have known it before I ever did about my kidnapping and all this in '83. He's Jewish, and he went to Well, the cameras traveled him around, and they showed Auschwitz and camp and all this, and they talk about the gassing of the Jews. I want to refer you back to 41 when they kidnapped me from Buckingham Palace and all